Are we recording or should we be along with it today?
I don't want you to be very rude in front of our high-profile guests right now.
Explain where we are, Mr. Rick. What's your fake name again?
Dutch Pyramid.
Pyramid?
Yes.
I know it's a pyramid. It's Kenya, but everybody knows that already.
Good afternoon. It's that type of news. I'm Dutch Pyramid.
This is
interview. Bruce Robinson. You should be fired.
You can't fire me. This is my idea.
We are now currently with Mr. Alan Dunch and Mr. Richard Schuetz. Mr. Richard Schuetz.
It's interesting how he spelled it. So shoot.
Yeah. So would you mind introducing yourselves and your positions and?
Sure. You're sitting in the offices of the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission, and I am the chairman of the commission, and Richard is the executive director of the commission. I have 4 commissioners who sit with me as the commission itself, and then Richard runs the operation for us. We have, I think, 6 or 7 staff now. I say 6 or 7 because we seem to have picked up 1 or 2 in the last couple of days. As things keep rolling, we will be adding more and more. So, but welcome. Great to have you guys here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking the interest.
Yeah. The main thing, obviously, that most people want to know is how many comedians are actually employed in the commission? Like, I mean, as far as like percentile.
Right now?
Yeah.
With the exception of Richard, he is the only non-Bermudian. We have, actually, we have one other non-Bermudian who's a spouse of a Bermudian. Everybody else is Bermudian. And that is something we intend to maintain. Because one of the goals of the Act is to increase employment opportunities for Bermudians. And so obviously, you start with the commission. And that will hopefully move into the casinos as we get them up and running.
How about that?
Well, now that they're put at ease, that...
Are you sure? I don't know if it's going to be that simple because...
I feel like, I mean, that's a big step in the right direction, right? So as far as the commission is concerned, with the touchy situation that's going on with the hiring of MP Wayne Scott,
Right.
can you give us a bit of insight on the process that led to his hire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, I don't know why everybody's so uptight about it. The reality is that we hired him to be our chief technology officer. We put the ads for that job in the paper in November of last year. The ads clearly set out in great detail what the job entailed and what the qualifications for the job were. We received 17 applications from Bermudians, and I've forgotten how many applications from non-Bermudians. Do you remember, Richard?
It was right in that neighborhood.
Sense for the number?
We had a couple spouses of, and then a company applied.
And so...
just a company. Nothing serious.
Yeah.
So we set up a proper interview committee comprising of Richard, one of the other commissioners, Judith Holbein, who, as you may know, was the head of the civil service for a long time. I've forgotten who the...
Our chief financial officer.
So that's right, our CFO was on it. And then we actually hired an outsider from KPMG, who's a technology expert. And he sat on the panel as well. The 17 Bermudian, we ignored all the non-Bermudian applicants, we just looked at the Bermudians. The 17 were whittled down to 8. The 8 were invited to come in for a first round of interviews. That interview process took place, and we whittled it, or the committee whittled it down to 3. And then there was a second round of interviews. And at the conclusion of that, the committee made a recommendation to the commission. It was the unanimous recommendation of the committee that Wayne was the man for the job. Obviously, he hasn't worked in casinos, but then again, if it was a requirement for Bermudians to have worked in casinos before they can apply for a job in the casino industry, we don't have a lot of Bermudians working in the casinos. So other than that, he fit all of the requirements, he had all of the skills, we offered him the job. Didn't faze me one bit that he was a member of Parliament. still doesn't, to be honest. I mean, I understand and respect that other people feel differently about that issue, but it doesn't bother me as long as he does the job that he's hired for. That's all I'm interested in. And, you know, one of the things that bothers me is that this particular subject matter, I think, has been used for political purposes, as opposed to actually being looked at from a legitimate perspective in the sense of, did the commission hire the right man for the job? Well, you know, the commission is not political. In fact, quite the opposite. I want nothing to do with politics. We have a job to do, and we want to do it in a non-political environment. And this hiring was done on the basis that we thought we had the right man for the job. And we still do.
If I can add a couple points to that. One, we went to both our in-house counsel and our out-house counsel, and both of them were of the opinion that this violated nothing, any acts or laws relevant to the jurisdiction. And the last point is nobody that applied had casino experience for this position. And the easiest thing for me to have done would have been to run off to the United States, and we could have gotten a ton of people that would love to come here and offered one of those people the job, you know. But we are committed to hiring Bermudians, and I was kind of a little bit startled, and we went through all that effort to make sure that we did embrace a Bermudian, and there was a bit of pushback.
Well, I think unfortunately, in the times of today, it's almost like nothing can get done without people assuming that there have to be some form of political undertones. So it's like, I can say the sky is blue, and someone's going to come up to me and say, oh, you're just saying that because your dad told you the sky is blue. I'm like, what? Well, so I am happy to hear that, you know, the conflict of interest doesn't exist. Because if the Gaming Commission is, well, actively trying to stay out of politics, it would be no political gain for him to join. So basically, you know, that whole argument that he needs to resign because of the conflict of interest needs to just go home.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the commission is concerned, it's something.
And what happens with the legislature? I mean, obviously, if they have a bill before the legislature that says we're going to give the chief technology officer $1 million a year, that would be an issue where you would clearly be conflicted, where you have something to gain. But that's House business, and they resolve those conflicts internally. And I'm sure Wayne will be careful not to cross any lines there with regards to the ethics of it all.
Yeah,
all right. Okay. So, would you guys mind giving us a bit of background on, you know, the commission and what's been happening, you know, what you guys are looking forward to? Just so the folks who don't know, they have a little background on it.
Most people don't know, that's the thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's unfortunate that perhaps the commission hasn't been quite as PR sensitive as it should have been. But you know, again, we've been given a job to do. We've just been trying to get on and do it. But so the act was passed in December 2014, and I'm not going to go into the history, but I'm sure you know that it was controversial. But you know, the fact of the matter is that the House of Assembly decided to introduce gaming into Bermuda, and gaming is a fact now. People who criticize the commission for continuing to advance gaming really are misconceived, because we're not advancing gaming. We were asked to do a job, the government having decided that gaming is a reality. So what was that job? Well, the commission was set up to basically regulate the gaming industry. I was appointed in February of 2015. My deputy was appointed at the same time, and the other commissioners were appointed between February and May of 2015. Well, you know, before you can regulate something, you've got to have something to regulate. And so we were put in charge of regulating the gaming industry in Bermuda when there wasn't one. So it's hardly surprising that the first thing that we thought we had to probably do is create a stimulus to get an industry up and running. And that was the focus of my initial attention. And of course, in order to get help doing that, I needed somebody who actually knew something about gaming. Because I didn't know anything about gaming, and I still don't know very much about gaming. You know, I've been in a casino a few times, I've had unlucky at blackjack a few times, and Rich will tell you that I'm not very good when it comes to sports betting. I seem to keep losing all the time. But anyway, so what did I do? I decided I needed to go and find the best chief executive that I could. I was introduced to Richard through one of the government's consultants, actually, and interviewed Richard extensively, looked at his references, talked to his references, including the governor's office in California, which is where Richard came from. And we hired Richard in September of 2015. Richard, I won't speak for him. If you've got about another 3 hours, he'll tell you all about his 40 years of history in the casino industry. It's pretty extensive, and I can tell you, having walked around Las Vegas, London, and other places with him, meeting people in the gaming industry, everybody knows him. It's quite astonishing. It's almost like walking down the street with your father in Hamilton. You know? Yeah. The number of people who stop to say hello and what have you. But, so Richard came in to help us start the gaming industry. And we've been criticized for it, but it's no great secret that one of the first things we did was we went out to Las Vegas and we talked to all the big operators to see whether they had any interest in coming to Bermuda and setting up a brand name casino hotel on the island. And that initiative didn't get us very far because at the end of the day it was just too small. But there's still people we're talking to. But in the meantime, we moved ahead with the mission set out by the Act, which is to license 3, now 4, hotel properties in Bermuda with their own casino and their own casino brand. Now, one of the things we found out real quick was that the Act had flaws. It's nobody's fault, and nobody is to be blamed for that. The reality is that it's a massive piece of legislation that was brought in from another jurisdiction which had wholly different circumstances and dynamics. And when Richard and the Commission and I sat down and started to analyze the Act in the context of how does this work in Bermuda, we soon figured out we needed to make some changes. So we spent quite a lot of time going through the parliamentary process of amending the Act. I don't know how much you know about how that works, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. And it can be very frustrating and very tedious. And I will tell you, we got very frustrated and kind of pissed off on occasion because we didn't think that the politicians and some of the civil servants were necessarily our friends. And we were beating heads with a number of people, and we had some pretty long, sort of drawn-out arguments with them over the amendments. But eventually we got there. Fast forward, where are we today? About 6 weeks ago, no, maybe 4 weeks ago, we started the RFP process where we invited people who qualify for casino licenses. You have to be what's called a designated site to qualify for a casino license. We called for the people who are qualified for licenses to come forward with RFPs and submit them to us between now and the 21st of July. And those RFPs, when they come in, will be evaluated, and there will then be public hearings, and if all goes according to plan, I am hoping that we will hold licensing hearings in September, and we should see the first provisional license granted, I hope, in September. And if that happens, and again, if everything goes according to plan, hopefully we'll see the casino up and running by the first or second quarter of next year.
Next year.
Next year.
That's it.
That's it.
Really?
It's right around the corner there.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. So, all those people who have accused us of doing nothing and asked why it's taking so long, they have no real idea as to what's involved in the process. And again, that's not a criticism, because unless you are involved in the process, you couldn't possibly really understand it. But what I will tell you is this. You take a place like Jamaica. Jamaica introduced gaming in 2010. They're hoping to have their first casino open in 2021.
No, Jesus.
If we get our first casino open by the first quarter of next year, we will have started the industry and got it up and running within 3 years. I don't think there's anywhere else in the world other than a couple of states in the United States that have achieved that. So I'm a bit sensitive to the accusation that we're not doing anything and we're taking too long, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've done a lot in a very short space of time. Bearing in mind, we're all volunteers, and we've got 7 staff. 7 staff.
Well,
and if I can go through briefly the areas that we cover, the things that we are responsible for, the first and foremost is suitability of the participants. We want to make sure everybody's of outstanding character and integrity. That's important for a couple reasons. One is if you have someone that has a bad history in your industry, that can damage the brand of that industry. We also have a business in which substantial transactions take place without a receipt. If you put $500 down on a blackjack game and win it, they hand you $500. They don't hand you a receipt. That causes a certain challenge with regards to your internal controls. And we found out the best internal control when you don't have the normal accounting safeguards like receiving of transactions is that you hire people that are extraordinarily honest and don't have any problems, because the industry has discovered if you hire people that have had problems, they have a tendency or a higher probabilities to have problems again in their life. That's just the reality. If they've lived their life in pristine fashion, they have a tendency to maintain that standard. The second thing we do is very strong internal controls so that as assets flow through the organization, we can understand where they are. The third thing we do is we make sure the games are offered with integrity. Every die should have 1-1 on it, 1-2, and 1-3, and a slot machine should be on a random process, and payoffs are possible, and it is what it says it is. The fourth thing, we want robust ability to recognize revenues and that all fees and taxes are paid. And the fifth thing is that we have protections for the vulnerable. And this means everything from making sure that the advertising isn't attractive to children, to protecting those people that have issues with problem and pathological gambling. And we've even gone beyond that somewhat, because normally that problem in pathological gambling isn't handled by the regulatory agency, but we brought a level of expertise here that we thought we needed to handle it so that it's done right. Because I've often made the commitment there won't be a hand dealt here until we have a very robust and vibrant protections for the vulnerable. The other thing we've done is we've spent a lot of time developing training, because we believe this industry was made legal so as to provide jobs for Bermudians as much as that's possible. And if we don't have robust and active and aggressive training programs, then that's just not going to happen. So we've been very involved in that, and that's typically an area that regulatory agencies aren't involved in. Again, we felt that if we didn't address that it wouldn't be addressed, and so we're working with that, and we're going to be able to work with the operators. We're working with Bermuda College, we're working with Bermuda Hospitality Institute, we're working with workforce development. We have traveled to places like the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, which was just ranked the best hospitality college in the world. And we're using those resources, and we're also working with an East Coast firm on training regimens, because we want to be able to provide a vibrant training environment for Bermudians.
And that's exactly what the mandate under the Act is. And we're paying attention to the mandate and trying to implement it in a non-political way.
Emphasis on the non-political. Well, stop making it political.
So with that, obviously we've already talked of employment of Bermudians getting me all excited.
I don't think,
because all people need to work.
There's going to be some positions that have to be employed from outside, but we will cause them to have a succession plan. That is, when someone takes their job here, they will have to understand that they're going to lose their job because they're going to be responsible for training a Bermudian behind them.
Is that because Bermudians have no casino experience?
That's largely it, yeah.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah,
I can't argue with that.
But as Richard said, one of the things we're doing now in order to establish the base and set the tone is we're starting to create training programs for Bermudians to learn about how to operate in the casino environment at every level. And so the opportunities will be there for Bermudians to go to places like UNLV and go to training schools. The Bermuda College will have, we hope, a training program.
Really?
And then, of course, there will be on-site training. it will be a requirement of any casino operator that we license that they will on-site train on an ongoing basis Bermudians to do the jobs on the floor that inevitably will have to be done initially by people who are skilled. So, Trey's not going to get a job dealing dice or dealing cards, rolling dice or dealing cards the day the first casino opens. But there's no reason, if he's interested in the job, that a year or two from now, you can't have been trained into it and be on the floor doing it. That's the objective.
One of our viewers actually had a question about the training programs and how they can prepare themselves for the casino atmosphere and the casino industry. So basically, what you're saying is that these programs have already been thought of and already
They're in the process of being developed, but it's a great question because there's no better starting point than to start doing training in the hospitality industry, and those programs already exist. Because gaming is just an aspect of hospitality at the end of the day, and so the skills that you need to be good in the hospitality service industry are all going to be of value to you if you happen to be working on a casino floor.
Well,
Yeah.
he needs a job. So if you can just take him and put him in the first training, use him as a guinea pig. You document the entire thing all the way through, and if he can do a dice for the end of 2 years, so.
Well,
Are you trying to replace me with something? Application for new co-hosts. Has to be between the ages of 18 and
already.
yes, exactly. Must be between the age of 18 and 25, and female significantly better looking than this guy. I'm tired of looking at his mug all day.
Well, there goes that application.
Cause
Come on now.
either way.
We're here to talk about games, not play games. Jeez.
Well, we're gonna talk about games, so we can't play games.
Well, you can't.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you guys being so transparent about it. And if it's anything that you would like to add as far as what you would like to tell,
I think one of the messages that might be helpful for your viewers is to understand that you can't run before you can walk. And when I was put into this position and asked to take it on, the first thing that I did was I went to visit 3 different sets of regulators in the United States, in the real gaming states. And the very first place I went, at the end, I went into this room, there were, I think, 23 or 24 people in it. It was the most intense 6 or 8 hours you can possibly imagine. But at the end of it, one of the regulators came up to me and said, I can only really give you one piece of advice. And it's a piece of advice I've never forgotten, because it transcends all areas. And what he said to me was this. He said, just beware of the fact that you don't know what you don't know. There is such a mass of information that you need to come to grips with in order to understand how a casino works. And then, once you get an understanding of how it works, there is massive information that you have to gather and consolidate in order to actually put in place the regulatory process so that you can make sure it works the way it's supposed to work. Because remember, gaming's all about money. And people do a lot of things, sometimes desperate things, to try and get money. And so our job is to make sure that the people who want to game and have fun don't get ripped off, don't get stolen from, and actually do enjoy the experience. And that involves regulation. And that's what we're all about.
One of the things that we're trying to do, to put it into modern language, is that we're trying to develop a sustainable industry. You can throw open a gambling industry and it may not be sustainable if there are problems with theft or tax evasion and things of that sort. We're trying to ensure that this is a sustainable industry, and in the 21st century with your anti-money laundering controls and all the other issues, and if you understand the importance of a financial reputation in this community, you have to make sure that those 5 things are all done and they're done extraordinarily well. Because if you miss you've caused a problem not only to the gaming industry, but to the island's reputation as a whole.
Okay.
That's actually really good to hear that.
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot about the countermeasures for folks who are vulnerable, so I guess I'm not going to ask that question, but to close out, I would like to hear, and I know the viewers would like to hear exactly what benefits do you think having a casino and the gaming industry will have on our country?
Well, certainly the goal of establishing casino gaming in Bermuda was to provide a new form of entertainment for our visitors, and we hope it will do that. It was designed to produce additional forms of revenue generation for the government, for the people, and there will be a casino tax. It will be a 10% tax, so for every dollar that is bet in a casino, 10% of it will go to the government in terms of tax. And hopefully it will just create an alternative and enjoyable experience for everybody who wants to participate in it. And employment. Those are the three benefits, really. Enhanced experience, generating revenue, and employment. Employment being the most important.
I think it's also important to understand that anybody that believes that this commission or this act introduces gambling onto this island is extraordinarily naive.
Let's leave that for another piece. I don't think we have the time to get into that today. But we'll happily talk to you later.
Oh, we'd love to talk to you guys again. We'd love to. As much information as we can get out there so people can actually understand more of what's going on. That's
where Richard's going, and where I really don't want him to go right now, because this can take a long time, but where Richard's going is that the reality is gaming has existed in Bermuda for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's just been illegal.
Mm-hmm. Or unregulated.
But
and the internet.
That's for another day.
Yeah,
that's for another day.
Well, we appreciate you guys allowing us in and answering our questions.
Yes.
Bringing us into a fancy office like this. Have a fancy glass and a fancy coaster. So,
it's actually the first office I've been to with coasters.
We want to keep it fancy.
We don't have coasters at ours.
So we appreciate it, and we hope that you guys enjoyed and got all the information that you were looking for.
And if you have more questions, let us know, and we'll come back and talk to these guys again. If they'll have us.
Absolutely.
There we go.
These sirs again. It's that type of news.
Check out later.
Walk out of the thing, even in a fancy office like this.
Listen, just because I'm in the fancy office, I ain't changing up the style, right? That's how we roll, man.
Yeah.